I would recommend to get a journal, get a book, get something that you can write in, and you know that you can always go to that to write, no matter what it is. That's how I started out. And even if it's just start out with a piece of paper for today and then tuck that piece of paper somewhere in a folder, somewhere where you can find it tomorrow. And what you're going to do is you're going to write anything and everything down that just sparks a light in you. So sometimes it might be, I don't know if anybody's done this. I've done this a lot and I never realized what it meant. Now I get it. But in the middle of the night when I had insomnia, I would get up and watch TV for hours. Okay, because I couldn't go back to sleep.
Can't go back to sleep.
And
what else you gonna do?
Yeah,
Right,
I folded clothes. Like I tried to read books and all of that. No, I would always watch TV. But all of a sudden, one sentence would speak out to you. And you're like, why did I just hear that one sentence?
Mm-hmm.
But I've been watching this shit for 3 hours.
Right.
And the one sentence spoke out to me. Go write down that one sentence.
Welcome to High on Self-Care. I'm your host, Stacey Zeal, yoga teacher, crystal lover, high-functioning stoner, and CEO of MaryZeal.com, a community for stoners who love cannabis and are looking to prioritize their self-care. On this podcast, we'll explore ways that meditation, mindfulness, yoga, and of course, all things weed can help you to elevate your self-care. We'll explore ways to truly value ourselves, use stillness for self-discovery, and cannabis to go higher on our journey. Think of me as your sister stoner who lovingly encourages you to prioritize yourself and reap the benefits of this magical plant. If you're ready to create a life that holds space for your most valuable asset, that's you, by the way, take a deep breath, light your J, and let's dive in.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of High on Self-Care. It is your host, Stacey Zeal. And again, I am always excited for y'all to check out this show. It has grown to over 5,000 downloads, y'all. And it's all because y'all have absolutely just showed up and supported the show. You've told your friends. You've done all the things. So I really, really appreciate each and every one of you that takes the time to listen every week. And if you're new here, welcome, welcome, welcome to the show. Again, I'm your host, Stacey Zeal, and we are going to have a fantastic conversation with a guest today, y'all. We have already been talking for 15 minutes, and I just hit record. So I am sorry that y'all missed out on the magic of the beginning of the conversation, but I promise we're going to have an awesome, great conversation. So y'all, I have a cannabis wellness coach here. She is the founder of You Are Wellness, Got Terpenes, and co-founder of Noted.info. Her name is Nydia, and I'm excited to have you here. Welcome to the show, Nydia.
Hi, Stacey. Thank you for having me. And what excitement of all your support and followers. I just want to give you a big flower or a whole bunch of flowers and flowers to your listeners for being present and dedicated.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my listeners are so fantastic. Like they are always, just hitting me up on Instagram and stuff, just telling me how much they love the show. And so that makes me just keep wanting to keep going. And so, and wanting to bring on fabulous guests as yourselves because, I was so intrigued that you are a cannabis wellness coach. Because I think that cannabis you have to be intentional with it. You have to really understand the plant to get the best benefit. And I think that sometimes people turn to cannabis and they don't really fully understand the full magic of the plant. And so they're kind of missing, you're getting the goods, right? You're getting all this greatness, but you're missing out on some of the fantastic goodness that lies within this plant from just learning more and understanding more. So I'm excited to talk today. So I would love for you to just kind of tell us a little bit about who you are and talk to us about what you do.
So my name is Nydia Torres. I am an endocannabinoid balance coach. Even more than a cannabis wellness coach, I've been working with this plant, consuming her for the last 27 years. Communing with her is what I've discovered I've been doing. But endocannabinoid balance, well, the endocannabinoid system is a system that we have in our body. It's parallel to our cardiovascular system or to our endocrine system or to our nervous system. And we feed it with different things, whether it's with sleep, whether it's with nutrition, whether it's with movement. My particular favorite is consuming cannabis. I've got a list of about 70 different ways that we can consume it. I'm really excited about that because a lot of the times we think that the only way we consume it is to smoke it. And that's just so not true. So I'm excited to have a list of 70. So I've been doing this for dedicated, straight and narrow, full time, about a year, plus, about a year and 9 months to be exact. And prior to this life, I was a physical therapist for 17 years. And I never understood as a physical therapist. I consumed throughout those 17 years. I was in my green closet, so to speak. I didn't understand why I was doing it. And I never understood also why my specialty of movement had to be separated from nutrition when it was so integral. And the mindset piece of being able to put one foot in front of the other was just as important as whether or not you heard multiple voices, and then the medications that got influenced. And oh, then there was, all the toxin exposure that you were involved with in your environment. Yet I was always told to stay in this one tiny lane. I had to leave that lane in order to really marry myself with cannabis. And I am so happy that I did. It was one of the most scariest things that I've ever done in my life, but it's been the most beautiful outcome that I could ever experience, because I've come to meet people like you in spaces like this, being able to educate and get each other's perspectives on endocannabinoid balance and realize that it is truly not just the medication of the plant. It is a marriage and a symbiotic relationship of self when it comes to the nutrition, like I said earlier, to the movement, to the mindfulness and the toxin exposure. And when you're able to find that balance and able to realize how unique it is to you, like your fingerprint, like your own breath, like your own spirituality and religion, then you start to have not only grace for yourself, but grace for others. And through those teachings, I got to teach my son. He's learning through me, and we've had conversations, and he's very zealous. At 7 years old, he likes to go and introduce his mom as a cannabis person. And people don't like to hear that out of a 7-year-old's mouth, right?
Mm-hmm.
They shun it. They turn him away. They tell him to be quiet. And so we changed the dialogue and the narrative, and we started talking about terpenes. Because you know what? The linalool or the lavender taste that you get sometimes when you exhale cannabis, or sometimes when you inhale it, or that peppery smell, that beta caryophyllene that'll also come in line with linalool, are found in things like black pepper and lavender or sage or cloves or cinnamon. And so what if we could help people understand this plant from other plants that they consume, and understand that it is just as scary as basil, but that we are deciding to ostracize it based on 1 out of 500 compounds that are found in the plant. And I'm talking about THC. And so we built this t-shirt company to start conversations and to educate differently. And then my passion project, and lastly, is noted.info, like a node on a plant. It is a place, a centralized place for people to bring their information and for information to be dispersed. We're calling ourselves like the PubMed or Google Scholar or WebMD of cannabis, for lack of better wording, because it doesn't exist yet. We are creating an onboarding process, a continuing education platform, and a cross-training platform for cannabis and plant medicine. We're hoping to expand it to psilocybin as well. And so that's a little bit about me. You and I think, met on Clubhouse, and right now I host a bunch of rooms on there to help people understand that endocannabinoid balance doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be a joint. It doesn't have to be an edible. It could be just meditating. It could be just switching your toothpaste out for something that's more natural. It could be, using a more natural perfume, or it could be just eating fruits and vegetables for the day, or, drinking a couple of glasses of water first thing in the morning. Or it could be, hey, that breathing exercise that you need in the middle of the day, because our endocannabinoid balance is as labile as our days are. So from minute to minute, your stress values change, and that's how our endocannabinoid balance does as well. It's a system made to help us sleep, eat, forget, protect, and relax. And relax and sleep are different, just in case. I used to confuse them for being the same. So thank you for letting me put all of that about myself out there. It helps. So thank you so much for the space. I appreciate you.
No, thank you so much for all of that great information. I want to go into a few different things that you talked about. So First, I want to talk about, you mentioned that it was scary, but you shifted anyway. Your transition from your more traditional healthcare background to the cannabis care and cannabis wellness space. So, and the reason I want to kind of go into that a little bit is because I feel like I'm getting signals from the universe, because this week I've had so many conversations about overcoming fear. And I don't know where, and the topic literally just came out of nowhere, right? Like I have a podcast episode, if y'all want to go back and listen to that, episode 19, about overcoming fear.
That's not out of nowhere. That's divine.
Yeah, right. And that's why I'm like, okay, so let me listen. And when you said that it was a scary transition, I was like, okay, so that means we definitely have to talk about it. So talk about that transition. Talk about how, a little bit more about, how you started and, into the traditional healthcare realm, and what made you want to shift to a cannabis space.
So let's just say a life will hit you over the head with signals until the world will fall apart around you, and that signal is the only thing left to listen to. I say that because when I was 15, I started consuming this plant. She called me then. I didn't listen. Had I listened then, I'd be a legacy grower now, right? Okay. Then there was the fact that all through I graduated high school valedictorian. I graduated from Howard University cum laude. And then I went to grad school and also graduated cum laude at grad school. I did that under the influence of cannabis.
I wish I was not in college. Oh,
there was not one day that I wasn't. Yeah. And I never looked at the fact that I was entering a career where they were going to piss test me every time I went in. So fast forward 17 years, and I think about the 10th year, I was working at Craig Hospital in Colorado. And I remember being in one of the interdisciplinary meetings where they, every week in a rehab hospital, you have your disciplinary team that gets together and they talk about the progress of the patient. The doctors talk about the medication interactions, how it's influencing the therapy, nursing, dietary, all of that, so that you're treating the patient as a whole, right? It's a beautiful system to work through. And I wish we claim to do that in healthcare, but we really don't. In these closed settings, we do. And so I remember being in one of those, and they brought up one of, I think is the very first Marinol was the very first cannabis medication. And it was about 10 years ago. I could be wrong. It could have been a different one. But they brought it up, and they brought up, like, let's forget that one. I don't really like it. Let's get him a medical prescription, and let's get him some drops and have his mom bring it in and we'll dispense it. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I really felt like a light went off. I didn't listen then. Okay. And then fast forward towards the end of my career, I had to leave my job because I was burning the candle at both ends. And I literally got sick and ended up in the EC. I went to another job and got fired because I wasn't willing to, whatever reasons with my license, I wasn't willing to risk my license. Then I got into the cannabis industry and worked as a bud tender, and saw such a disparity that the customers and the industry has, because it's a retail experience from the inside out. All those three things, like, I was really trying. I was trying to stay in physical therapy. And then I even tried to do the green grunt work of, the cannabis industry. And I realized, you know what? No, I need to step into my true authority and self. And when the situation was presented to me, because I kept getting fired or letting go or different conflicts, it was like, oh, I need to become my own boss. One, so everybody else is fired. And then two, this is going to be scary as hell. I don't know how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to call in the support of my family, friends, and resources. I've got somebody that does my taxes. Okay, cool. Like, we need to look at my taxes real quick. And we need to look at, different parts and aspects of my life to say, all right, this shit's about to get real rough. And that's okay. Because when there is discomfort, there is growth. Okay. A bean, a cannabis seed, a basil seed, a pepper seed, any kind of seed, it has to crack in order for it to start the germination process of that little tiny initial root to come out, right? And that then it has to crack again in order for another one. And then there's the tale that we're always told about the butterfly, right? the butterfly goes into its cocoon, and it has to fight its way out of the cocoon in order to gain the strength to be able to fly. But if you help it, even the fucking slightest, that butterfly will die. And so you have to go through that discomfort in order to be able to metamorphosize into something like a phoenix rising from the ashes. And you said that most of your audience are women and women of color. And by hell, if we don't know how to rise like phoenix from the ashes, we are resilient as hell. And so I remember one thing that you asked me to do in terms of actionable steps, and I'll still go on because I know we have time and I'll give more actionable steps. But this is one that I asked of your audience members, just to write a list of 10 people, women or men, dead or alive, that you admire. And then write down, after their name, write down what you admire about them. And then I want you to take a step back, walk around your house, get up from where you're sitting, and sit back down and look at that list. And look at all those traits that you admire about those people and realize you have that in you. That's why you look at them. And so in this stage of uncomfortableness of coming out of the green closet or stepping into cannabis or pivoting on what your skills are, whether you're working this kind of job or that kind of job, and you want to step into cannabis and pivot, realize that you have those abilities and that you've done it before. It may just have looked slightly different. And that even though it's scary, the scariness and the discomfort that comes with it is part of the growth that will help you actualize and become who you step into your authority and your purpose, I guess.
Yeah, that is fire, y'all. I hope that y'all are catching all of this magic. And one of the things that stuck out for me is, that where there's discomfort, there is growth, right? Because we can't get to the next level. And, thinking about what, we're in the last quarter of this year, it's 2021, right? Crazy year. What do we like? And I've just had this in my head, just like, how do I want to finish this year? Do I want to finish this year playing small or being scared? Or do I want to finish this year going all out and doing everything I can to make this my best quarter of the year? Right. And so that's what I'm encouraging, y'all who are listening, and to take away from that, because I understand that there is fear, right? When I created that fear episode, it's so funny. When I created that episode, I feel like I was talking really to myself. And I feel like I was, because things were just starting to pick up with the podcast and people, starting to, you start to hit a little bit of momentum and it brings a little fear. And so I feel like I was talking to myself, and I just was like, you got to do it scared, right? Because it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be afraid, but that's okay. You can still do it. You can still keep going and still make progress. So I love, love, love that. That's amazing.
Well, and as you go, realizing that each little goal that you achieve, relish in it. Relish in it. You've reached your 5,000. Hell yeah. You know what I mean? And hell yeah to everyone listening to this, because they're coming up just as much as you are. You know what I mean? It's important to partner. It's important to promote and protect each other and pay each other. I get that quote from Miss Kindness. She came up with it during a retreat with women in cannabis. But it's important to do that and to relish each little step you take, because then you know that you're in the present, and the present is a present. So yeah.
Yes. Let's talk about endocannabinoid balance. And specifically, so we talked a little bit about what the endocannabinoid system is. And thank you for giving us that information, because I think that is super helpful for us to understand that it does, control a lot of different things in our body. So let's talk about balance, because I feel like that's what I'm kind of starting to feel from this last conversation, from this last piece of the conversation we were saying, is how do we recognize when something is off balance, whether that is in our endocannabinoid system or our life? Like, how do we recognize being off balance? And then what do we do to then get back in balance?
Well, you know what's funny? Discomfort.
Love that. I felt like there was a connection. There had to be.
Pain and discomfort. There's that old adage that people talk about in terms of you go to the doctor or you go to your physical therapist, and physical therapy, we say it a lot. And there's like, doc, it hurts when I do this. And they're like bending their neck in a weird way or their elbow in a weird way. And they keep doing it repetitively. And it's like, well, stop doing it. That applies to life too. But, the moments of discomfort are also the whispers that you get from your body, from some people call it the Holy Spirit, some people call it your divine self, your higher self, some people call it just knowing yourself. Those little whispers that you get from your body, those little whispers you get from your heart, from your gut. They say your mind is in your gut, or mind your gut is another one, or there's a lot of different things around. There's this one song by Afia where she talks about when you open your heart and you open your mind, they make love in your belly. Your intuition is a big, big thing. Pain is not normal. We shouldn't be experiencing pain in our bodies, in our souls, or in our mind. Depression is living in the past. Anxiety is living in the future. And we deserve to be fully present in the now. And so when it comes to balance and it being labile, I come from a very ethereal place, and please bring me back to the ground if you need to. If sleeping's an issue, right? Some of the first things that when you talk to people, they talk about, it's like, okay, well, how's your caffeine intake? Where are you? Where's your caffeine?
Yep,
where are you at? Do you stop at a certain time? And it's just like, oh, okay. And you start being a little bit more aware of that. And you're like, okay, maybe I need to cut it down from 6 ventis a day down to just 1 in the morning, or 1 cup a day, or, maybe I need to cut it out altogether and switch to tea. There's different, and your balance is going to look different as you evolve. And so it might look like instead of, having 6 venti cups, you have 3 cups of coffee, but you make up with that by drinking 8 cups of water. Balance looks different to everybody at absolutely every moment. So to say that, that's why I love the endocannabinoid system. It takes us away from traditional healthcare and for traditional ways of thinking, saying that 8 glasses of water is absolutely necessary for everybody every day. No, that's bullshit. Sometimes some people need 16. There's been days where I've drank 13 or 14, and then there's been days where I've only drank 7, and that's what I needed. And you can tell by how cracked your lips are, how chapped they are. You can tell by the plumpness of your skin. You can tell by how hydrated your skin feels at any given moment. Just like you can also tell by the smell and look of your urine. It's okay to look at your feces and say, wow, it's really black. That means I've got way too much iron in my, these are what my body means. If my body odor smells to high hell, what did I eat that threw me off balance or inflamed me? These are the very small things you can do with the endocannabinoid system to gain balance, but they're so individual. It's a matter of taking a step back from everything you've been taught, taking a step back from yourself, and just starting to observe. Becoming the observer is where you start with balance of the endocannabinoid system.
That made a whole lot of sense. And it literally, it made so much sense. And for me, one of the things I was thinking through what you were saying, and I love how you ended it with become the observer. Because that's kind of what it's about, right? And I think that's one of the things about cannabis that I love, and probably why I do it with so many of my, self-care activities like meditation and yoga, is because it helps me to stay in the present moment. It helps me to be the observer, and I love to be the observer when I'm doing yoga, because when I'm the observer, I'm really paying attention to what my body is feeling, what my body's telling me, and it's so interesting that you mentioned sleep, because sleep is my thing, right? That's why I started smoking weed, because I fell asleep driving. And that was my body telling me, okay, bitch, you need to take this seriously. Cause she was telling me before, right? Like you were saying, I've been getting the signals, but I wasn't listening, right? Being tired all the time is not normal. just being exhausted, waking up exhausted is not normal. But that was my normal. So I just pushed through, and that's what I felt. And then my body just said, I'm going to need my body, the universe, divine, whatever, sent me a really big signal that I was only going to get, right? That was personal for me. And for other people, maybe your signal is different, right? Maybe your body is telling you something, and because you're not listening, the signal is just going to get bigger, right? It's just going to keep amplifying and amplifying and amplifying. So that's why it's so important to take that time to be the observer. Listen to your body, try to just figure out what is it telling you, and figuring out how you can get back in balance. And so that made all the sense in the world to me. And I hope that, if anybody was a little confused, that really kind of helped to put it in perspective. And I find it like parallels just with life in general, right? Like, when you're too focused on the future and you're so focused on the past, you're really missing the moments right now. And that's what, for me, I have anxiety. And I didn't realize I had anxiety until I started smoking weed, which is interesting. Because then I was like, oh, wow, there is a slow mode. There is like an actual regular speed.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so interesting. I think that definitely parallels life. And one of the things you mentioned was intuition. And I want to go into that more because I saw you had an article on your site. It's called The Divine Smoke, Cannabis and Intuition. And we're going to link that in the show notes, y'all, if y'all want to check it out, because it was a great article. So talk to me about intuition. You went into it a little bit before, but let's start there and talk about what intuition is, and then how does cannabis and intuition then link together?
That's where I have to bring up the fact that I'm a ganja clergy woman.
Yes,
I've only been that.
Can I tell you? I saw it on your site. I was like, I had that in my notes to say too. I missed it, but yes, I was like a ganja clergy woman. I feel like I have a question on here about that. Like, what is that?
Yes. That's how I define myself nowadays. Cannabis wellness coach, endocannabinoid balance. All that is good, but when you come down to the true essence and nature of this plant, you start wanting to know more about her. And you start learning about Harry Anslinger and Prohibition, and they blame it on that one gentleman. When, if you go back, it starts with DuPont in the 1800s, but and petrochemical industry complex, and I can go way deep into that. But then you start going even further than that, and you start reading history about this plant and mishistory about this plant, mistaken stories. It can start with the fact that we call it marijuana, or the fact that we separate cannabis from hemp and why, or the fact that it was our ancestors that brought these seeds sewn in their loincloths across the Atlantic Ocean. Mm-hmm. They weren't brought with dolls. And then you go beyond that, and it's like, where did this start with? And that's, I met this gentleman on Clubhouse, and his name was artist Michael M. And he runs divinesmoke.com. He is my mentor, one of my mentors. And that gentleman is a cannabis historian. I had read something about cannabis being called daga in Africa, and that's one of many names that is carried over the many centuries. It's been here for almost 30 million years at this point. And the Dogon tribe, ancient Africa, was a tribe that used to convene every 50 years in the ancient pyramids and host ritual and ceremony using cannabis as incense and they would work with the Zoroastrians, which were the Magi, the three wise men, and they would use cannabis to convene together with all of the great leaders of the great lands to ascend their manifestations and prayers up to the heavens. The goddess Seshat was the goddess known, and this was the goddess Seshat in Egypt, was known as the goddess of cannabis. And she would consort with Thoth. Thoth is the god of thought. Okay. Seshat was the goddess of cannabis, but she was also the goddess of measurement, architect, knowledge. She's the one that introduced writing. Thoth is the one that taught writing. And Thoth is thought to be the word thought, right? I think about it, and these kids have been chanting it for the last couple of years. So no wonder, right? With calling everybody a thought. Anyway, I think it's absolutely glorious that our children have unknowingly brought him, reincarnated this new way of thinking. But anyways, it's believed that thought was the guardian of the Akashic records. Well, what are the Akashic records? The Akashic records are the records of everything that has been and ever will be, that has ever happened for you, for me, for anybody in all of eternity. And to be quite frank, out of all the scientists that we currently have to date, and this may or may not upset some, but out of all the scientists that we have to date, the only ones that truly have it right are the physicists. Because they get to a point where they realize, you know what? It's all within us and it's all within the universe, and we're all one, and there's nothing else but all one. We're all energy packets. We're all constantly exchanging. If you look, our skin renews every 2 months. So you literally are what you eat. Every cell in our body renews every 7 years. You are a new person, literally from top to bottom, than you were 7 years ago. But there are energy packets that are always being exchanged that have been here from the beginning of time. Energy is not created nor destroyed. It is merely exchanged. I didn't come up with that. Einstein did. He was a physicist. We're all one. So intuition is you. It is those whispers we were talking about. It's those shivers. It's when you know you're being celebrated in spaces. It's when you know you're being accepted and heard for who you are, without boundary, without limitations, when you're free to be you. It's knowing what makes you smile and setting boundaries for those that don't, and being unabashed and okay with it. That is your intuition. That is your chi. That is your Holy Spirit. That is your endocannabinoid balance. It is however you want to label it. That is what it is to you.
Yeah, that's such a great explanation. I love, so I love learning about history, and as far as like ancient history, more like goddesses, gods, and all that kind of stuff. I love to learn that kind of stuff, and more spirituality. That's one of the things I'm starting to explore more within myself, is to figure out what does spirituality look like for me. Because I'm not a religious person. I'm kind of more anti-structure. But I love, the freeness of spirituality and stuff like that. So super helpful. So how do we tap into that intuition if we are a little disconnected from it? I find that sometimes we have a hard time hearing what's happening, right? Like we mentioned our struggles with hearing. How do we hear? How do we open ourselves up? Yeah.
I would recommend to get a journal, get a book, get something that you can write in, and you know that you can always go to that to write, no matter what it is. That's how I started out. And even if it's just start out with a piece of paper for today, and then tuck that piece of paper somewhere in a folder, somewhere where you can find it tomorrow. And what you're going to do is you're going to write anything and everything down that just sparks a light in you. So sometimes it might be, I don't know if anybody's done this. I've done this a lot and I never realized what it meant. Now I get it. But in the middle of the night when I had insomnia, I would get up and watch TV for hours. Okay, because I couldn't go back to sleep.
I can't go back to sleep.
And,
what else you gonna do?
Yeah,
right?
I folded clothes. Like I tried to read books and all of that. No, I would always watch TV. But all of a sudden, one sentence would speak out to you. And you're like, why did I just hear that one sentence?
Mm-hmm.
But I've been watching this shit for 3 hours.
Right.
And the one sentence spoke out to me. Go write down that one sentence. That's it talking to you. Okay. If you say, you know what? I really want to order something healthy, but I'm just going to do something quick and fast. Oh, I got someone simple for you. How about this? Forget all that. Here's a really simple one. When you need to pee or poop, think about how many times you tell yourself, all right, hold on. I'm going to go pee in a second. Let me just get this done. And your body's like, hello?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I'm going to get this one more email done and I'll be okay. Or you know what? It's only fit. Let me see how much time on this show. I got 5 more minutes on the show. I can make it 5 more minutes. I'm just going to kegel. I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be okay. Like, oh, I'm just going to kegel. But here, I'm going to drink a little bit more water, but I'm going to be okay. I'm just going to go. I'm going to wait. The meeting's almost over. And your body's sitting there, knock. And the knock is getting fucking louder and louder and louder until finally you're either peeing your pants because you sneezed on accident, or you laughed by accident, or you're running your ass to the bathroom and you kind of got, a little dribble on yourself, or you just barely made it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That is your intuition talking to you. Mm-hmm. And you keep telling it to be quiet. Mm-hmm. Imagine if you do that with your own pee. Imagine what else you're doing with. So if the paper situation and writing little things down here and there and journaling, or, sometimes our mind gets so busy with to-do lists. So instead of sitting there and going over it in your head and letting it ruminate, write down the to-do list and then start checking shit off. Don't write it again. What's the point of writing it again? You're not getting anything done. You're just doing the same thing your mind did. Mm-hmm. So you have to start training your mind to listen to your intuition, because it's separating, the conscious from the subconscious. The conscious is that ruminating little voice in your head that says, I can make it 5 more minutes, or I can do this one more time, or I don't need to go right now, or I need to get this, and that done. Otherwise, this person's going to have this story and that person's going to have that story. And this is going to happen to me. And you go, and I need to send the email. And all of those voices are going on. When you're able to separate that subconscious, and the subconscious is sitting there looking at you like, yo, you all right? You gonna make it, girl? And you just sitting there like, oh shit, I am going crazy, aren't I? And your other self is like, yeah, you know what? Those staff meetings that everybody's told you not to have in your mind, you should be having those staff.
Oh my gosh. We have all types of conversations up in here in this mind. Let me tell you, we talk out loud to ourselves.
You should have boards. You should have committees. You should have all of that.
Yes.
That movie Inside and Out that the kids watched, where the mom had all the committees and the dad had all the committees up in there, and they're all pushing buttons. That shit is real.
Yes.
When you can get them to separate, that's when you can allow your intuition to guide you, and you can put that loud ass to rest. And you can say, you know what? You need to take a break for a minute. I'm going to go take a bath, or I'm going to go do this yoga, or I'm going to go take a walk out in nature, or I'm going to go love on my kids, or I'm going to go take this psilocybin or have this cannabis. And I'm going to take a moment for myself. And I'm going to throw some manifestations up. I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to end this fucking year with a bang. Mm-hmm. That's when you're able to have those conversations. And that's when you're able to listen to that intuition. And so I challenge everybody to start just with their pee. If it's just that.
That is such a great example. And because, it's so true. And I know I do that definitely. Right. So, we all do that. We all do have some things that we need to definitely tap into. And I definitely do that. And I love that you talked about writing it down, because that's one of the things I feel like last year, I started journaling, and I've never written before. I've always been one of those people who was like, I'll see a cute book in TJ Maxx, I buy it, and then I end up maybe writing 1 or 2 pages, and it just kind of sits.
Girl, yeah,
that has definitely been me for so long. But last year I really made an actual effort. And I said, okay, I'm going to journal before bed, or I'm going to journal in the morning. I put it into my routines. My people, all my high on self-care listeners know I love my routines. So I put it in my routine, and I really started to see the difference. Like, I have so much mind chatter going on up there, and especially if I'm stressed, or I'm, and all that kind of stuff. But
she's busy, ain't she?
Yeah, she is busy. She got a lot going on. She got 2 businesses. She got a full-time job. She got a partner. She got a nephew. She got all types of shit going on. Okay, so I get it. Sis is busy. I get it. But in order for me to stay sane and stay me, I had that, one of the things I was listening to, and I'm still exploring this, so it's not something I have talked about on the podcast yet. It's separating me from me. And I think that that's kind of what you were saying with the subconscious and the conscious, right?
Yeah.
Me as a person has a whole lot of stuff going on, has, goals and ambitions and dreams and stuff like that. But then there is also another me that needs attention. There is a me that is guiding those steps, and that is telling me to slow down, that is telling me to take care of myself, that is telling me, hey, you need to get some more sleep because you're starting to get tired again. Or, hey, you need to, you've been off your routine. Like last quarter, I was not really good on my routines. And so I was like, I was starting to notice last month because I started to burn out a little bit. And I just was like, okay, Stacey, I need to just stop. Right. And so that me was telling me, so it's calling me back into myself and to calling me back into balance. And so that's kind of something I'm still, I still don't have it all figured out. Right. That whole me and separating me thing. But it's something I'm definitely exploring for sure.
It's a beautiful process. And what you'll discover, I've been resisting it a little bit. What you discover is there are multiple yous. Just like you said, there's the one that has the partner, the one that has the niece, the one that has the this, and the one that has the that, and the one that has the businesses, and the one that you got to feed all of those. But first, you got to identify them, and you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. I named my inner child. I had an inner child, and I remember I used to call her something when I was a young kid, and I remember my mom would always bring her up every once in a while, and I was like, oh, you know what? I need to bring her out. Like, now's the time to bring her out. If I'm really going into self, now's the time to go ahead and name her and be like, yes, that's who I was in the past, or that's part of me that's holding on to the past, or that's the part of me that's back there. Okay. That needs to come back with me here now. And then there's the woman I want to become. Right. And then there's the woman I am now. Right. And all of them need to be able to find a convergence in order for me to become that whole self. But you've got to start somewhere. So maybe you just name one. And then after a few years, you name another one. And then, it's just like our relationship with our breasts or our core or our solar, our solar, no, not a solar plexus, our sacral plexus, excuse me, and our root chakra. And, I'm talking about our intimate zones. Do we have names for them? Do we have a name for our vagina? Do we have a name for the left breast, for the right breast? You know what I mean? Do we love on ourselves like that enough to be able to then identify, take them out piece by piece and say, okay, you need attention right now. I'm going to give you that attention. And, that's just as similar as the endocannabinoid balance in that, for a long time, I thought the answer was in my full spectrum CBD oil. And I would smoke my joints here and there. And then one day I had to switch it up to some Rick Simpson oil. And all of a sudden that was where my light was. And then it switches. So what looks right for Stacey or what looks right for anybody that's listening this quarter might look different next quarter. And that's okay. It's giving yourself the grace to do that. It's giving yourself enough grace to say at 2 p.m. that you're not feeling the itis, that you actually need to take a nap or you need to rest or do something for yourself because your body is feeling the gravity pull of the Earth's magnetic field and saying, okay, this is what I need. It kind of all intertwines and goes back to its own, to the same thing. And it's the listening.
Yeah. I love that. That is such a great place to, and I don't even want to end the conversation, but we have to at some point. But yeah, so I love that because it's such about coming back to self. A lot of things like paying attention to yourself, coming back to self, and really just prioritizing yourself. Because I feel, our society tells us to prioritize everybody else and listen to all these other things. But it's really, I love the quote from Audre Lorde that said it's and I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but it's a radical, like self-care is a radical act, right? It's loving on myself and paying attention to myself. It's such
How do you pour from
act.
An empty cup?
Exactly. You can't.
Like, it's like literally, those fountains where they have the cup sideways and there's a cup pouring from the top and it just continues pouring to the bottom. That's what you're doing. You know what I mean? And it's like, you want to be efficient, turn that cup a little bit, just a little bit. Right. And fill your cup first. And guess what? Then you'll have a crazy overflowing, abundant waterfall as opposed to a little trickle.
Yes. Love that. So please let us know. I know that everybody's listening is like, well, I want to talk to her some more. I want to get my hands on her. So please let us know how our listeners can get in touch with you and how they can connect with you online, how they can work with you.
Yeah, thank you. The absolute best way is to reach out on my Instagram. There's a Linktree link, and you can make an appointment with me. You can look at my schedule and make it at any given time. I have 4 different Instagrams. I think, yeah, 4. So there's Nydia, Nydia CWC, Cannabis Wellness Coach. And then there's also at You Are Wellness Official. There is at Ganja Church MI and at Got Terpenes, got.terpenes. And there you can see some of our t-shirts and our t-shirt line. We got 3 collections on there for you to check out. Yeah, start some conversations.
Love that. And those will all be linked in the show notes, y'all. Well, I'm also going to make sure that those are in the show notes for sure. Talk to me, and before we wrap, tell me about your t-shirts, because I thought it was such a beautiful story about, like, why is it important for your son to understand cannabis in itself, and then bringing him into this business space, or him maybe bringing you into this t-shirt space.
Before we do that, I was just going to say, I'm also on Clubhouse every Monday through Friday. I do a mantra room from 7 to 8. And then I do Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 to 11. I usually do a beginner meditation and abundance reading. So right now we're on Eckhart Tolle's chapter 4, I think. So welcome to anybody to come. But the Got Terpenes, why is it important for my son to be involved? Why is it important for my son to know about plants and the earth, and be conscious and be self-aware and have emotional intelligence and control? I believe we learn that from nature the best, and he should never be scared of any plant. He should just know how to respect them and how to learn and listen to them, because they've been around much longer than we have. They can teach us much more than we can teach each other or ourselves. That's why it's important. Also because it's a medicine, because I've had past lives in Egypt, because I just, I've got a very deep-rooted link to this plant. That's why she came to me at 15. And so instead of ignoring it, why not bring it into the purview of someone who can do much greater things than I can in his lifetime? And so I'm just a shepherd to teach him, and hopefully he can teach others. Because if a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old can understand it, then why can't grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, and anybody in between understand it?
Right. I love that. And that's such a great, I love plants as well. All my plants are over here. She has beautiful plants in her background. Let me tell you, this Monstera is smiling at me. Let me tell you. Let me tell you, she is beautiful. Yes, mine is so small right now. I have, I got to
give you a cutting.
Her. Yeah.
Oh, she's gorgeous.
So she's growing, and I split her in 2. So I put my other one in my room.
Give her some support. They like to climb.
Okay. Perfect. Yes, I will do that. Absolutely. Thank you. So I agree with, I feel like that's such a great lesson to pass on to kids. And I want to definitely pass that on to my nephew, because I think plants are such a great teacher, right? Like whether it's cannabis plant or whether it's, just an aloe plant or something like that. Like there's so much magic in planting, and there's so much magic in, I think, taking care of plants, right? Like caring for something else and having to,
that is
something
self-care.
that, like my plants, literally in my morning, I love to like spray my plants and talk to them, and we smoke out. We have a great time, and that's one of the things that I find as probably an element of self-care I really don't talk much about, because those are just, they're my babies. Like, I take care of them every day.
They love your carbon dioxide, and they give you all the oxygen back.
Yes. We talk, we smoke, we have a real good time. Let me tell you. So thank you so much for coming on High on Self-Care. This has been one of my favorite conversations to date, for sure. And I hope that y'all took away some awesome information. Make sure y'all head over to the show notes at maryzeal.com. That's where we're going to have Nydia's all her information. We're going to link to her website, her Instagram pages, and all that stuff so you can get in touch with her there. Thanks again for coming on the show. Y'all, we'll see you on the next episode.
Well, that's a wrap on another episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you got a nugget of information or inspiration from this episode, here are 5 ways you can support the podcast. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/high-on-self-care to send your token of appreciation. You can shop Mary Zeal's favorite things. This is a list of products that we love and have actually tried over at maryzeal.com, and some of these products contain affiliate links that give us a kickback when you shop their site at no cost to you. You can leave us a review on your podcast app of choice. If you are listening on the web, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on the podcast app of choice. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all the places. 4th, you can share the podcast with 3 friends that you think will benefit from all the nuggets that we drop. And lastly, you can join my email list to get episodes sent to you weekly and learn about all the fun new things we have coming up on maryzeal.com and the podcast. All the links are in the description. And I will catch you on the next episode.